What's going on, guys? BSing Sports. I'm Ryan doing the intro this week. I have Bill with me as always.
What's up, guys?
This week it is very, very baseball dominant, as it will be, probably throughout all of baseball season. But we're going to start with a question from a fan, and we're pretty much just going to hit on the Phillies. We're going to do a little bit of other, players and teams here and there, but this is going to be a show mostly for our Philadelphia fans, if we have any left. I think they'll win today, so I think we'll have a solid showing of Philly fans. They might lose tomorrow. We'll see. Anyway, we're going to get right into the question from Josh Howe. If the Nationals continue to fall in the standings and lose games, where does Max Scherzer go? Bill?
All right, so we got to start this with after 2019, Max Scherzer has a trade block clause in his contract, so he's able to block anywhere that he doesn't want to go, so he can stay a National if he chooses to, or he can go anywhere else that he would like, depending on a trade offer that the Nationals agree to, obviously. My heavy favorite is a team that is actually playing the Phillies right here, right now, the San Francisco Giants. My reasoning for that is they've managed to stay in first place without phenomenal starting pitching. They could really use a guy to continue to compete in that division, which is really good, featuring the Padres and the Dodgers. And like I said, they're first in the division right now. So if the Nationals continue to go on the route that they're going, the Nationals right now are 31-36, 7 games back from the Mets. The East isn't exactly dominant, so that may not be as dramatic as it seems, but for them to be 5 games under 500 in that division, it is kind of worrisome for the Nationals. But yeah, so the Giants are my heavy favorite to get them. That's my thought process on that. I do have two AL teams that maybe go get him, but the Giants are my favorites.
What are the teams in the AL?
I've got the Red Sox as a contender and the Tampa Bay Rays.
All right, so I agree with you on the Red Sox, actually, although I also have a heavy favorite. It's not the Red Sox, but I agree that they're a player. They're always a player. Chris Sale's still out, and they've managed to hang around in that division too at 44-28, I believe. So they've surprised a lot of people this year. They're doing very well, and they could use some starting pitching help. Although I initially thought the Giants were in play. However, I'm pretty sure they lead the National League in ERA in terms of rotation. I think they're starting pitching between DeSclafani, Cueto, Gosman just threw a good 8 innings. I think their starting rotation's kind of held up pretty well. I mean, granted, I'm sure they'll probably do their due diligence, and if they have a deal that they like, they'll go get Max. But this is a difficult situation too, because Max is 36 years old, and this is the final year of a deal. So teams will be a little hesitant to give up top prospects, which is probably what the Nationals will command for a rental guy. My other team in the AL that I actually had penciled in was the other Sox team. I think Chicago could use the starting pitching help as well. Giolito struggled at times this year, and they're in the running too. They're actually at the top of their division. Cleveland's right behind them, but Cleveland has great rotation. They're looking for anything besides pitching. So I think the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Red Sox are also players in this, but the reason I'm wearing a St. Louis Cardinals hat is because I do believe if he gets traded, Max is going home, and that's to St. Louis. He went to high school in Missouri. He was actually originally drafted by the Cardinals in 2003 in the 43rd round, and he chose to go to college instead. So I believe that he would want to go home, and the Cardinals, they have that solid lineup. Goldschmidt's finally coming around. It's June. Last couple of years, he's been slow starting. They got Arenado, Tommy Edmonds, one of the low-key better leadoff hitters in the MLB, and they have good bats. The bullpen's a little shaky at times, but another starter would really help that team in that division. And like I said, the problem is I don't know if they'll peel away from top prospects. I know they have Nolan Gorman, who's a third baseman. They've been playing him at second in the minors a lot, which is good because Arenado is still on the correct side of 30 and has quite a few years left in him. So Gorman would have been blocked by him anyway. But I don't know that they'd really give up top prospects for a guy who's only going to be on the team potentially, a couple months.
In addition to that, the Cardinals are a 500 team right now at 35-35, and the Cubs and Brewers are pulling away with that division. So not entirely sure the Cardinals are going to be in a position where they're going to be buyers.
Yeah, that's a situation too, and they've kind of underperformed. Flaherty had that great start, but outside of that, like I said, their pitching has kind of let them down. They've had some offensive inconsistencies too. Outside of Arenado and maybe Carlson and Edmund, they've been all over the place. Tyler O'Neill though has been raking the last 100 plate appearances or so, maybe even less than that. Dude's got like over 1,000 OPS, or it's pretty close to that if I'm not mistaken. So they're starting to come around with the bats, but they need some pitching help, and this would really fit them very well. But I think this is a move that needs to be made sooner rather than later if they want to stay in this division.
Yeah, I mean, great conversation. I actually just got a question from my older sister. So Danelle's question, her name is Danelle, is how many perfect games have been pitched in MLB history? I think I know the number, but I want to hear what you think the number is.
Wait, what's the question?
The question is how many perfect games have been pitched in MLB history?
23, I think.
I think it's 23 as well.
I also think it's 23. But that's not the question I have.
It is 23. We were right. Thank you for the question, Danelle. We appreciate that.
Also, the question that I'm seeing from Danelle is not that. Actually, it's something entirely different.
She's texted me on the side, not in the group. So
so in the group, she also asked who the fastest fastball ever pitched and in what year. So I know who it is. I do not remember the year he did it though.
Okay.
It's definitely. Do you think you know who it is?
Yes.
All right, let's say it on three. 1, 2, 3.
Verlander?
Chapman.
Oh, Chapman, yeah.
Because Chapman threw that 105-mile-an-hour fastball like a few years ago, and it was the big to-do. But I don't remember what year that was. 2015? 2016? I think it was Chapman in 2016. That's my guess. Sorry, guys. Waiting on
September 24th, 2010, 105.1 miles per hour.
Was that long ago?
2010.
Oh yeah, because when he's picked up by the Reds, yeah.
Correct. He's still throwing 101 miles an hour as the reliever.
Yeah, as the closer for the Yankee. I mean, I guess that's what happens when you age. You lose 4 miles an hour, but 105 to 101. Wow, I can't even believe he's been in the league that long. Okay, I knew it was Chapman. I remember he touched 105, but I couldn't remember the year. Like, it's funny. I had that conversation with somebody earlier. My concept of time is way wrong. Always totally screwed up. But who was the home run leader in 1980?
In 80?
Yeah,
because it's dad. I'm gonna assume it's Mike Schmidt.
Yeah. Being that it's the old man, I'm gonna assume it's Mike Schmidt as well. But
it is.
Mike that was a question. That was a question from the old man. Ken Brandt stumped us last week, so we're going with the obvious answer this week. He's a diehard Phillies fan, so we can't imagine that he actually knew who that was on the top of his head, unless it was Mike Schmidt.
It is Mike Schmidt. I googled it. It's Mike Schmidt. So, I mean, there
perfect.
You go. Do you know how many he had?
In the 40s, right?
Yes.
48.
41. That was good though. He actually led the league in home runs in 80, 81, and 83.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know the only reason Mike Schmidt's in the Hall of Fame is because he played good defense and he could hit power, but
yeah.
267 average doesn't get it done most times. So
most times, yeah. But Danelle and Dad, thanks very much for giving us some questions, having a discussion about. We appreciate it.
Josh, also thank you for the question. Made us do some research there.
Yep, thank you, Josh. We appreciate that as well.
Speaking of staying in divisions, let's talk about who's going to stay on the team in regards to the Philadelphia Phillies. So we have their 2021 40-man roster pulled up. Now, we're not going to go through every single player on the roster.
Yeah, there are some obvious
we're not going to do Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto and Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, because obviously they're all going to go. Just kidding. They'll be around. So we're going to do, like cusp players or like top prospects. Like at what point do you move on from these guys? So I'll go ahead and ask you first, starting off, Hector Neris. Does he stay or does he go? Mid-season, in the off season, when do you think he leaves? If he leaves?
So I think the next 10 games for the Phillies are extremely crucial for the trade deadline. Neris has not been super effective this year, so nobody's going to be buying on him. So Neris will be here until the end of the season, but I think the Phillies need to move on from him. The Hector Neris experiment is over. It has failed. I know there are stretches where he's really dominant and he's really good and he has a nasty split finger fastball, and I get it, but he's become extremely predictable. He tried to change it up earlier in the season this year. He was throwing more fastballs up in the
It,
zone.
it worked too because
And it
he
worked.
had like a sub 2 ERA or like very close to sub 2 for like quite some time. He's been getting roughed up his last 2 starts
Yeah,
or
exactly.
appearances, not starts. Jesus, Ryan.
So I think the Hector Neris, again, like Ryan said, it was working out. The high because he's got a mid 90s fastball. So the high fastball up and in, you throw that splitter down in the dirt, you usually get that guys to chase. He started going away from it. It became predictable again, and guys are hitting a ton off of him, especially his last three outings. So I think Neris goes at the end of the season. They don't bring him back. I think they finally give up on him.
I agree, and for somewhat of a different reason, but I 100% agree. As far as getting roughed up goes, you notice that teams inside the division tend to hit Nectar a little bit better, or Hector a little bit better, because they've seen him a lot. They know what his split looks like, so they tend to lay off of it a little bit, force him to throw fastballs. But for a team that's been bad or 500 since 2012, in a market like this with expectations like this for guys that have been around for a majority of that time, I think they need to go. I think like you have to try and start brand new. I know that Dave Dombrowski came in and revamped, like half the bullpen. And so far it looked pretty good. I like Alvarado. I like Coonrod. Those guys have been performing fairly well. If Alvarado could throw strikes more consistently, that'd be great. But I like that dude's attitude, the slamming the glove on the ground, the getting hype. He's got nasty stuff. I like what he brings to the bullpen, and we gave up almost nothing to get him.
Yeah.
So
It's worth noting that I know that we're only in this. Speaking of the Phillies bullpen, so Aaron Nola comes out, and by the way, we're filming on Saturday evening. Aaron Nola comes out, gives up 6 runs in 2 1/3 innings. The bullpen has shut the Giants down since then. We're in the top of the 6th right now. I get it, 3 innings, big deal. But last year that would not have happened. The bullpen last year would not have happened.
Another guy from the bullpen, Bailey Falter, who just like recently came up because I'd never even heard of this dude, and he pitched like a nasty 3 1/3 innings yesterday. Like that guy's stuff was good. He gave up 1 earned run, but still for a bullpen that pitched 4 1/3, I think it was yesterday, but they did pretty well.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they actually pitched 5 full innings. Yeah, because no, they would have pitched 4 because
Yeah.
the Giants. So Velasquez came out after 4, but yeah, he looked pretty good too. So the bullpen, while it hasn't been great at times, is actually pitching to the tune of a sub-3 ERA in June. So that's 19 days that they're sub-3, and those are good numbers. You'll take that from your bullpen all day. So while they started rough, they're definitely settling down, except for Neris, who seems to be going the wrong way. So I think Neris, just because he's been around so long and he's obviously not effective in the division, and you play your division opponents 19 times a year each. So that's really what's killing us. I don't know why he started the year as the closer, and I could honestly see him being traded. I could.
Okay.
I could see a team taking him on as a 7th inning guy.
Okay. Let's see other guys who are on.
Eflin?
Yeah, I was going to say let's do Eflin real quick. So I want to apologize. We're getting another question. Who is the only pitcher to ever pitch a 27 pitch perfect game? Not sure if you want to use this one as it's in Appalachian D League. Okay, Kenny, I appreciate you giving us a question that's very obscure, but that's not going to work for our show.
That's 27. Hold on, whoa! Run that back. 27 pitch perfect game. What league was it?
Appalachian D League.
I don't care if you're in low A ball. I don't care if you're a major leaguer in high school. You know how hard it is to throw a 27 pitch perfect game. I need to see the answer to this.
All right, I'm gonna Google it right now. Who threw a
27 pitch? The opposing hitting coach, did take a pitch ever cross his mind, come out of his mouth maybe?
Well, Google doesn't know what it is, so I can't help you there. I'm wondering if he meant to say through a first pitch strike. The question is confusing, Kenny. We'll come back to it next week.
Yeah, for
However,
sure.
Piggybacking off of that, do you know who the last pitcher to throw a perfect game was? It was thrown in 2012.
Braden wasn't 2012, was he? No. The last perfect game was in 2012.
Last perfect game, yes. Obviously not no hitter because we got 8.
Yeah, that's nuts. 2012. Who
AL pitcher at the time.
was it? Burley?
No.
No.
And when King Felix.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. King
Yeah,
Felix did throw that perfect game. Yeah, that dude's wildly underrated. We'll talk about that on a different show though.
Yeah, I agree. But
back to Zach Eflin.
All right, give me your review on that one.
So much for a 35-minute show, huh, Bill?
Sorry.
I like Eflin. I think Eflin stays. He's going to be relatively cheaper, and he's not. I think the expectation by the fan base for Zach Eflin is a little unrealistic. Mid to high 3 ERA, a 3 to 4 starter, I'm good with. And you can keep him around for relatively cheap. He's only 27 years old this year. It's pretty young for a pitcher. So he's improved. He's showing some improvement year to year. So I'd say Eflin stays, but at the same time, would I be disappointed if he got traded or if, that something happened? No, not particularly.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's not a guy that I'm against. The next person we're going to bring up, both of us are going to say go.
I just looked at the next name on the list, so that's going to be a short one.
Eflin has done well this year for exactly what he is. He's a mid-3, very low 4 ERA, number 3 pitcher in a division that's got a lot of bats, a lot of good bats. We're in a division with Ronald Acuna and like Ozzie Albies, Freddie Freeman, guys like that. And I just mentioned like the Braves lineup, but there are other hitters in the league in the division.
Juan Soto. We keep skipping out on that guy.
Yeah, that's true. I do. I always skip out on Juan Soto.
Trey Turner's a good hitter too.
Yeah, Trey Turner. Yeah. But I could see Zach Eflin staying now at the trade deadline. If somebody's looking for somebody, I could see Eflin being traded to be a 4 in a rotation that's going to compete this year.
If they're more than 6 games out and they get an offer they really can't refuse,
he's going to
go.
Next name on the list. Let's do this one quick because you and I could just rattle off so much stuff about this guy.
Okay.
Vince Velasquez.
I'm going to say that he's not coming back. Let's let the fan base guess who it is and then pause for 3 seconds. But yeah, Vince Velasquez hopefully doesn't come back. I really, really hope he doesn't come back. He's part of that group that I put in with Neris of been around for the mediocrity too long, and he's a big part of it. So I think he has much more of a hand in the pot than Neris does in terms of why we've been so mediocre. So dude needs to go. I don't even want him in the bullpen at this point. Had you talked me into that last year, I'd have been like, yeah, sure, whatever. Because he had some, good outings in the bullpen, in both in 2019 and 2020. But I'm done with this experiment. Move on from that.
Yeah, I know he's pitched well in a few games this season, but that should not completely void everything that he's done up to this point since 2010. I agree. He's got to go.
That trade was a total flop.
It was.
We got Mark Appel and Vince Velasquez for Ken Giles. And while Giles, is in Toronto now, I believe he's still in Toronto.
Yeah. That
trade was a total flop. Mark Appel was supposed to be a beast and he flopped. He's making his comeback in Double-A. And Vince Velasquez is mediocre at best. He had that good 5-start stretch where I was honestly really hoping it wouldn't last because I didn't want the Phillies to have a reason to keep him around. I would love to see him gone.
Some of these other names we don't really got to talk about. We know Wheeler's not going anywhere. I like Brogdon, Bradley. We like them.
Andrew Knapp.
Andrew Knapp. Yeah, that's the next one on the list.
Andrew Knapp.
However, he on almost any other team in baseball, he'd be a starting catcher. I think he wants to go.
I don't know that he leaves.
Really?
I disagree with that statement. I think he's good as a backup because he is a backup. I think he's just one of those things where it's like he's fine coming off the bench to pinch hit, and he's fine spelling Real Muto, every once in a while.
I think if he wants to start somewhere, I think he leaves. Now, I don't know what his mindset is. If I'm a big league ball player and I'm playing back up to the best catcher in baseball, I'm not really angry about it. But
yeah, that's high regards. And he's played very well the last couple of years too. He played very well last year. He's been hitting the ball pretty well this year too.
The Phillies were willing to let him be the starter this year if Realmuto didn't come back. They did not go out and get another catcher. They were waiting to see if Realmuto signed, and if he didn't, all fingers were pointing to Andrew Knapp to be our starting catcher this year. And I wasn't against it. Don't get me wrong. I'm ecstatic to have JT, best catcher in baseball. End of story. But I was okay with Andrew Knapp being our starting catcher. Like you said, he's been performing the last couple of years. So
yeah, I think I agree with you. If a team comes to him, he's a free agent. If a team comes to him, they're like, hey, we're gonna offer you a starting catching spot. I could see him leaving. And then you'll just have Rafael Marchand back up JT. I mean, and Marchand is a young prospect. The Phillies are high on him. And who better to learn from than JT Realmuto? And you're not expecting Marchand to catch 50 games for you anyway. This isn't a platoon situation by any stretch of the imagination. Do you want to touch on Brad Miller at all? I like Brad Miller as a bench guy.
I do too. He's a versatile guy. I think he probably stays.
I wouldn't be upset if he stayed at all.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't really got to touch too much on Brad Miller. I do want to go to Andrew McCutchen, and I want to start Andrew McCutchen with I love Andrew McCutchen. He's been one of my favorite ball players for a long time. His energy that he brings. I hated that he went to the Yankees for that year and a half or whatever it was. But the energy that he brings to the game is on another level, and I love him for that. However, I do believe it's time to let go of Andrew McCutchen's career. I'm happy that he became a Philly. I really am. Again, I'm a huge Andrew McCutchen fan. However, after his ACL, he just hasn't been the same ball player. He's hitting 238 right now, which is actually kind of good considering he started the season at 111. So
yeah, so to speak, he's been on a tear.
yeah, and he has, and he's going to continue to contribute for the rest of the season. I really believe that he can. But after that, I think it's maybe time to let him go. So in the offseason, I think he goes. I mean, he's 34 years old. How many more years does he really have anyway? Do you want to give the guy another $11 million to stick around for 2 seasons to hope that he continues to perform, or do you want to try and see some of these young kids that you got in the minors and get them up here to play some baseball?
So yeah, it took the words right out of my mouth. So Andrew McCutchen is a free agent at the end of the year, and I do believe without a doubt he does not come back to the Phillies. I love Kutch when he was with the Pirates. They had one of the best outfields for a long time. And he's a former MVP, and at the peak of his career, he played very well. But it's just not that time. You can tell in the field at times he looks lost. He's not a very good fielder anymore, which is strange because the outfield isn't very difficult to play. But batting, older people tend to start slower on the season. Like I said, Goldie tends to start slower a lot. I'm not comparing him to Paul Goldschmidt by any standard, but it's time for him to go. And when you're a team that needs to rebuild, like the Phillies issue for me the last couple of years is that they're kind of stuck between rebuilding and trying to win now. And I think that's going to hurt the team more than if they had committed to one or the other, like spend the money or raise your prospects.
Yeah.
But it's time to see Moniak for 162 games or Cornelius Randolph for 162. You got to get these guys some at bats at this level, or even Adam Hazley in left, or whatever the case may be. These guys have to start getting at bats at the major league level. And 34, soon to be 35-year-old Andrew McCutchen just isn't going to do it for a team like this.
Exactly. I got 2 more guys I want to talk about.
Actually, is one of them Maton? I know he's going to stay because he's still under contract, but where do you think he stays? Is he a major leaguer next year?
So Maton was not one of the 2 I want to talk about. However, yes, I believe Maton
Mind you, Segura.
I do have another one I want to talk about. So Segura is one that I want to talk about. So let's talk about Segura. We'll go back to Maton. Let's go to Segura. I know he's got another year on the deal. He signed a 2-year deal with us.
Segura's under a 4-year contract.
4-year contract, but he's on year 3.
He's got one more.
He's got one more year. Yeah. So we actually have Gene Segura as part of our document here. So I think we'll just have that whole conversation right now. Gene Segura right now is hitting, I believe it's 332, Segura's hitting 332 right now. The conversation is if he continues this tear when he comes back from the IL, is he a possible MVP candidate? If he had more power, I would say yes. Now, having said that, he has had, I think, 5 walk-off hits this season, which is impressive from a single player on any team. So maybe he could contend for the MVP. I just don't see it as possible with guys like Acuna and Soto in the league, in the same division even. So maybe he could compete for the MVP. So let's start with that conversation, then we'll go into whether he stays or goes.
I think no doubt Gene Segura gets absolutely 0 votes for MVP. He's not even the most valuable player on the Phillies roster, let alone in the entire National League. Impact wise, impact on how does he impact the whole team? Well, feel like he's been hitting well for average. He has slight bit of pop and he's clutch. I want to see his numbers from the 7th inning or later. Like, I'm not going to deny what he is. He's clutch. He's got quite a few walk-off hits. I remember he hit a 3-run homer off Edwin Diaz. What was it, last year or 2 years ago to beat the Mets 5-2?
Yeah,
I remember that. So he has the clutch gene, if you will. And but he's just not a great all-around player. He doesn't impact a whole lineup the way a Bryce Harper does, a JT Realmuto does. The other guys get pitched differently because those dudes are in the lineup. Whereas how many times in the beginning of the season and throughout Didi's tenure has Didi been getting walked so teams can face Gene? Like there's a certain aspect that Segura is missing while he's having a fine season. One, he hasn't played defense very well, and 2, he's not it.
He's also notorious for not hustling on every play.
Yeah.
Notorious for it. So having said, so moving into this, I don't think Segura makes it. I know he's got 1 more year on the deal. I don't think he makes it past this offseason in Philadelphia.
If they can find somebody to take that $14 million contract, I guarantee you they do.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if and when he goes, Maton is definitely here until the likes of Bryson Stott are ready to go. But look, Maton was super hot. Maton was hitting 375 or whatever it was, and he was getting knocks and he was being really effective, playing small ball the way he was supposed to. Nobody tried to change his launch angle, letting him play small ball. So in that scenario, it was great. But then out of nowheres, and it was when Segura came back, he wasn't getting at bats and he wasn't hitting the ball anymore. But I think Maton could be a second baseman here for a little while until, like I said, the likes of Bryson Stott are ready to go.
So this fan base wildly overreacted. I know, shocker, to Maton first coming up, which tends to happen sometimes. You see these guys come up and they just rake, and it's because pitchers don't have any scouting reports on these guys. So even when Segura came back, he's still getting regular at bats because Didi's been out for some time. They just moved him over to short.
That's true.
And I think pitchers just kind of sort of figured him out a little bit, and he was struggling. Not used to having everyday at bats at the major league level. However, Maton is 24, so he is kind of on the cusp of like prospectism in terms of age. And the Phillies have a history of keeping guys in the minor leagues too long. So I really hope that they don't do that with Maton. But if Gene is here next year, Gene or Didi, one of the two are here next, or both are here next year, Maton starts out in AAA. But if one of them or both of them gets dealt, then I absolutely could see him up here. I think it's more likely Segura gets dealt.
Yeah, me too.
But we'll see how that goes. And as far as another name you touched on, Bryson Stott, I think they're waiting for him to get ready and get his minor league at bats. And when Didi's contract ends at the end of next year, I think he's the shortstop in 2023. He may be a little bit raw then too, but I think this is part of rebuilding. You need to get these young guys at bats. And
the younger you can do it, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah. So, and they're high on Stott. Stott has great hands, solid arm. Like, he'll play good defense, and he's got the ability to hit. So give him a couple more spring trainings, like next spring training, get him some at bats in AAA, and we'll see how that goes. But he just got promoted to AA, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. So he's well on his way.
And he's hitting there too. It doesn't seem like it's too big for him.
Yeah, no, and he's taking walks. He had just as many walks as strikeouts when I checked. So, but what's the other name you want to talk about?
I wanted to discuss. Well, I mean, And we don't really got to discuss Odubel. Neither of us want him here. Reese Hoskins.
Yeah, well, I mean, hang on now. Neither one of us wanted him here in the beginning, but let's give him his due diligence after his slow start. That dude's really turned it around.
Oh no, and he has. Look, for what it's worth, even though we're not a huge fan of Odubel Herrera, he's been consistent, and that's what you needed out of a center fielder. We did not have it at the beginning of the season. You're talking a month and a half into the season, our center fielders were hitting a combined 121. Like, that's absolutely pathetic. So it's great that Herrera has come in and given us some consistency out of that slot. But I think he's on the last year of his deal too, to be honest with you. And I don't think the Phillies bring him back.
I think he is too. And I could see him getting dealt at the deadline if somebody needs, an outfielder or even a bench bat
up here to get at bats.
Yeah. And my take on Herrera is that he is also gone, but his defense is so bad. Like, I watched him. This dude runs routes to the ball like he's trying to avoid a sniper in Warzone. Like, this dude zigzags so bad to the baseball, like it's not even funny. He can't read it. He looks like Roman Quinn out there because Roman Quinn does the same thing, except Roman Quinn can make up for these foul ups with his speed, and Herrera cannot. That, and combined with his rag arm, you lose two tools right there. And like I said, he's not very fast anyway. So he's got a little bit of pop, like outside of occasional good hitting. Herrera doesn't provide much value for me, and he's almost 30 years old. He'll be 30 in the offseason. So, again, if we could see Moniak and Hazley up in left center, I would be okay with that. You got Bryson right, obviously. So I would be good with that duo. Let them get their at-bats, and if they're not it, well,
we know
they're not it.
Yeah.
But we don't really know. Moniak getting a month and a half, maybe. I don't even remember how long.
That's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with you. Is if they come up and don't perform, then at least we know.
Yeah. And people are like, oh, Moniak stunk when he was here. Moniak got like 40 at-bats. Like, that's not enough time to tell anybody anything. And Hazley was hitting almost 270 between 2020 and 2019. So outside of his mental issues, I hope he resolves them. He wasn't playing bad baseball.
No, he wasn't.
Good arm, solid fielder. He's got decent wheels. So he's got the potential, and he's young. Let him play.
I agree with you. Next guy I want to talk about, Reese Hoskins.
Go on.
I agree. Now, I know this is a huge wish list that I've got here, and I think you know where I'm going, just bringing it up. There is a guy in the division, won MVP last year, who's a free agent at the end of the season. If the Braves don't sign him, Freddie Freeman's who I'm talking about. If the Braves don't sign him, that is. Now, they have a lot of money tied up in other places. I'm not sure they can afford to keep him.
Well, they got Acuna really cheap. I think they got him 10 years, $100 million flat. So they're paying Acuna
a year.
Nothing the next 10 years.
So if the Braves don't re-sign Freddie Freeman, I hope that Dombrowski kicks those tires super, super, super hard. And if that's the scenario, goodbye, Reese Hoskins. Now, if that scenario does not happen, I don't know if a better starting first baseman is going to come available. Look, he's a 260 or 239 career hitter, but he is good for 20 to 30 bombs and 80 to 100 RBIs. That's production that you need in a lineup. So again, very specific scenario where Freddie Freeman comes available and Dombrowski kicks those tires for real. Goodbye, Reese Hoskins. Otherwise, I think you need to keep him on the roster because he's only 28. He's not very old.
Reese is also a big walker too. Very good pitch selection. So that 239 average, in modern day baseball can be a little bit deceiving because he does walk a lot. However, I think Reese Hoskins, I agree with you. I'm going to steal your line. I agree 100%. If Reese, there's no other first baseman in the minor leagues for the Phillies. That's the big issue with me right now. If they had a prospect first baseman or even a prospect third baseman where Bohm could take over at first, then I'd say Reese is gone for sure. However, they do not have that set up at the moment, so we don't know. But Freddie Freeman is a free agent, and while his batting average looks down, there's actually a stat that I saw on Freddie Freeman. I want to bring this up. He has been more than doubly to the second place guy, the unluckiest hitter in baseball, according to Sabermetrics this year, which I'm not a firm believer in, but I do find this stat very interesting for those that are. His expected batting average, which factors in balls with the same exit velocity and like launch angle as compared to other people who hit those pitches the same way, is 70 points higher than his actual batting average. So when I saw this stat, he was batting 229, but based on the evidence gathered by these sabermetrics with other hitters, he should be hitting 299. So he just seems like that he's just getting bad luck this year, which tends to happen. But he is 31, I believe, and that's still relatively young for a guy who plays first base and plays still Gold Glove first base. At that, Freddie Freeman's been a very good fielder, and I've always preached he's probably been the most underrated player in the NL for years.
Yeah.
But I think if there's any contract discussions with Phillies and Rhys Hoskins, it waits till the offseason, because I think they'll make a move for Freeman. Harper's not going to want to sit here for another year. Realmuto's not going to want to sit here for another year if they don't get guys that go out and win. And Freeman is a stud. I don't care what his 230 batting average says. Freddie Freeman can play defense better than Rhys Hoskins, because Rhys Hoskins can't play defense. Let's be real.
Yeah.
And he's a great personality too. He'll bring a lot of energy to that ball club. Secondly, my opinion on Rhys being gone has a lot to do with Rhys. Rhys, we had this conversation the other day. Rhys is absolutely the streakiest hitter I have ever watched on the Phillies. No doubt in my mind. That includes the Ryan Howards. That includes, Jason Worth was a little hit or miss at times. That includes the Raul Ibanez one loop roller coaster where it was really high and then really low. This dude just goes through slumps for weeks. Then he, starts hitting the ball hard everywhere for weeks. And it's just, it's like short frequency waves. He's up and down all the time. And you're never going to win ball games if you're not consistent. And he just can't consistently figure it out. So maybe he goes somewhere else and consistently figures it out, and that's good for him. But if the chips fall into place, Rhys Hoskins is gone in the offseason. So yes, I agree with you. And those chips being Freddie Freeman, or in the words of Anthony Rizzo, Frederick.
That was a funny play. I enjoy that one.
Do we need to touch on Kingery?
He's gone. We don't have to touch on him. It's unfortunate that Gabe Kapler and that coaching staff ruined a kid who was meant to hit dingers in the gap, and they tried to make him hit home runs. It's really just super unfortunate. He can be fixed. I believe he can be fixed, but he will not be in this organization. And as such, Scott Kingery is they're going to try and find a way to unload that contract.
Well, they have to cut him. I mean,
yeah,
he was on waivers and nobody even took him.
Correct. Yeah. Well, probably people didn't take him because of the contract.
Yeah. So once they cut him, and the Phillies will pay that contract for next year and the year after. So
exactly.
Somebody will probably pick him up, but I agree.
Scott Kingery has been ruined by the Phillies organization, and they are not going to be the ones to fix him. Unfortunately, he'll probably go to the Nationals or the Braves or even the Marlins, and he'll light the Phillies up for 19 games a season for the next 10 years.
Yeah, that'd be about right for Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're blaming Gabe Kapler, and he's got the Giants in first place.
Yeah, that's true, but he went to an already established lineup, and he's winning games with that already established lineup. I mean, the Phillies are beating them right now 9-6.
Yeah, Odubel just hit a sac fly. I was going to say that.
I got the game on in the background. If anybody's wondering what I'm looking at, that's where my TV is.
But
we do continuing on with. I'm sorry, Gad, you got this one.
Yeah, I was about to say. So continuing on with the Phillies, if they keep hitting, can they win the division?
Look, anything's possible, but they're showing why they're a 500 team every single game. They had their ace gave up 6 runs in 2 1/3 innings today. Zach Wheeler has pitched out of his mind. Thank goodness, because without him, I don't think we'd be 500. The reason I'm going to say they probably can't win the division is not because of them. It's because of how well the Mets are playing. Jacob deGrom is out right now, but Jacob deGrom is going to come back and continue pitching at probably. I would not be surprised with the way he's pitched this year if he pitches a sub-1 ERA by the end of the year. And I know that's a huge, bold prediction situation, but I would not be surprised if Jacob deGrom throws sub-1 ERA for an entire season.
Let's do a bet, so to speak. What do you think he finishes more with, earned runs given up or RBIs? Because he's hitting 423. He's 11 for 26 on the year, and he's got 6 RBIs and 4 earned runs given up. By the way, 4 of those earned runs are on 3 home runs.
Rhys Hoskins just hit a 3-run shot. Speaking of the guy we were just talking about, it's a second home run of the day.
See, he's getting hot. He's been hitting the ball. He's been hitting the ball well since he went home. out west because he's from the San Fran area. So in LA, when he homered off Kershaw, who he's a career 500 hitter off of, and in San Francisco, he's hit the ball hard.
Yeah.
But once we come back east against the NL East, he's just gonna, fade away, walk or strike out. But anyway, back to
So the question. So I think he probably, man, it's going to be close, but he probably gives up more runs than he gets RBIs.
I agree. I also there's some cause for concern here. There's been a couple times where DeGrom's come out of starts with nagging injuries, and for pitchers, especially this early in the year, that's not a good sign. If Jacob DeGrom is not healthy at any point after the All-Star break, I think the Phillies can catch them. Now, granted, I'm not ruling out the Braves either because the Braves lineup is super talented. Mike Soroka's timeline keeps getting pushed back further and further and further. He was initially supposed to come back mid-May, but now he's not coming back till August. So that's huge for the Phillies because Soroka's a monster. But can they win the division? Yeah, sure. I think the Phillies have always been a second half organization. They've always been a second half team. Bryce Harper's a second half hitter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, but, yeah, you're right. They are, and historically they've been a second half team. I mean, look at 2000. I understand it was 14 years ago. 2007, though, the last month of the season, they're down by 8 games to the Mets, and they catch them.
2008, they were only 3 games above 500 at the All-Star break. They won the World Series.
Yeah, so the absolutely they could win the division. Sitting here right now at 33-34, they absolutely can win the division.
And people are ragging on them for their West Coast trip. Guys, the Dodgers we knew they were going to be one of, if not the best team in baseball. And the Giants have played out of their mind. If they go if they take these next 2 games and go 3-3 on this road trip, I will be elated.
Yes, 100%.
Because Bobby Cox, a Hall of Fame manager, once said that if you play good against the bad teams and play 500 ball against the really good teams, you'll be a playoff team. And if they play 500 against the playoff teams, that's the sign of a good team, especially on the road. And Tommy Lasorda, another Hall of Fame manager, made the statement that only a third of your games matter. Think about this statement for a second. Only a third of your games matter, because no matter how good you are, you're going to lose a third. And no matter how bad you are, you're going to win a third. So the difference between good and bad teams is a third of your games, which is 54 games.
That's an awesome statement. I like that.
I sat back and thought about that. And between that and Jake's comment the other week on the live podcast about the no-hitter from Bumgarner being the hot dog as a sandwich argument, my mind's blown. I'm just absolutely dumbfounded. But yeah, that statement makes a lot of sense because, yeah, I know you can sit here and nitpick. Oh, well, the Mariners only lost 46 games. Well, guess what? They also lost in the first round too. So
you're right.
But yeah, like generally speaking, no matter how good you are, you'll lose 54 games, and no matter how bad you are, team we're going to talk about next, they'll probably win 54 games. So a third of your games matter. That's interesting. I never really thought about it like that.
I like that. That's good. I'm glad you brought that one up.
But speaking of really, really bad teams, and this is terrible. This is otherworldly terrible. The Diamondbacks have set a record with 23 consecutive road losses. So having the doc here, Diamondbacks set record with 23 straight losses. They suck. On the road, road losses.
Yeah.
Imagine traveling for a 3-game road series. Like, say you're on like a 9-game road stand and you just know you're going to lose all 9 games. Like, that sucks.
It does suck. You also have on here, where does Kettle Marte go?
Yeah, because, I mean, he's a 300 hitter and he's the only person in the lineup worth he's the only person, honestly, on the Diamondbacks whole team worth anything. Bumgarner's not worth anything. Zach Gallen's not going anywhere. He's been to too many places already. St. Louis should have held on to him. But
it really depends on, so in my opinion, it really depends on what the so at the trade deadline, who's actually competing versus, so like I know we had the conversation with Segura and we had the conversation with Scherzer, but Kettle Marte is a slightly different situation.
He's a great, he plays everywhere. You know, he plays the outfield, he plays the infield.
Yeah.
Man, we need some interns, dude. Look at us doing research on
I know, we're over, like both of us are.
We're hiring for free, guys. If you want to be an intern for BSing Sports, come talk to us. So
maybe the
Ketel Marte is actually on a very, very interesting deal. He's making $6 million this year, 8 the next, and then he has club options for 23 and 24, 10 and 12 apiece. So the Diamondbacks could hold on to him for 3 more years, if my math is correct. And he's 27 years old. So he's a young guy who's got a lot of team control on this contract. They could get a nice return for Ketel Marte. But the problem is, do you want to hold him around for the rebuild? Is he too old for that? Because most rebuilds need a centerpiece.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. So it says, where does he go? And I didn't think he was going to go anywhere because I don't think the Diamondbacks are willing to part with him specifically because of that. They are going to be in a rebuild. If they're not already, they are going to be. And it's probably going to be this offseason, especially after losing 23 straight road games. And I don't think he's too old. I don't think he's too old to be the centerpiece, especially a player who is a utility and literally can play every position except for catcher and pitcher and probably first base. So I don't think he's too old to rebuild around. I think they keep him, especially since he's cheap to keep.
Do you remember when we did our predictions and we had the Diamondbacks 4th in this division and the Rockies being last?
Yes, I do.
Man, boy, I mean, it's still early and things can change, but man, talk about nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, I mean,
like one road win is gonna point the arrow up for this team.
Where are they at today? Yeah. They're probably away, right?
They hope not. I know most people don't like leaving their families for days at a time, but man, these guys must really hate going on the road.
Seriously. But yeah, so like I said, I don't think he goes anywhere. I'm gonna say they probably hold on to him.
I think him and Gallen are the only 2 untouchables on that team. I know Eduardo Escobar and David Peralta are on the trade block, and maybe even Carson Kelly. But outside of that, just they don't have much. They don't have much talent to give away. So how you're going to really rebuild? Yeah. So
I think that's going to do it for us this week, right?
Yeah, that's about it for me. I'm sure I'll come up with something that would have been really great for this show here in about 30 minutes when we get off. But that happens every week. So.
And we'll just add it for next week. Oh no, we do have a slight announcement. We are gonna.
Oh yeah. Go ahead and tell them.
We are gonna make an attempt to do a live show. Probably gonna be Friday or Saturday night. We'll have more details on all of our websites. It's gonna be a fantasy football conversation, so you guys can all tune in and listen to where your fantasy draft or players should be drafted in your fantasy draft. We're not pretending to be professionals. We're not pretending to be experts. We're giving you our opinions and what we feel is right. So please tune in. And like I said, we're going to try and do it live. So you guys can be on there with us, listen, ask questions, and we'll give you every answer that we have.
And Bill was speaking for himself. I'm a professional and I'm a god at fantasy. So
I smell bullshit. Anyway.
You smell some BS, huh?
Yeah,
well, that's what this podcast is all about.
Yeah, but anyway, we're really excited about it and we're looking forward to it. So hopefully you guys will tune in and listen to us. That'll be great. But that's going to do it for us here at BSing Sports. We're going to name this week's Should You Stay or Should You Go in terms of the contract or the players we were talking about for the Phillies. That was Ryan's idea and I like it a lot. So again, thanks for tuning in. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Spotify, we're on
Spreaker. Yep.
Please like, comment, tell your friends, tell your family, tell people you hate. I don't care. Just get some people to watch our show for us.
That was great. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, Bill. And guys, hopefully you tune in. Hopefully, like, subscribe, and share. And that'll do it here.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, by the way.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Another night